Hello and welcome back to another episode of Freeformers Unplugged, live streaming on LinkedIn because we're a business, live streaming on Twitch because why not, and on YouTube because that's where all of our content is. So welcome back to, like I say, another episode here on a Friday lunchtime. As ever, I'm joined by Emily. Emily, how are you doing? I can't hear you.
Mute! Oh my gosh!
I was
looking. You have to go on mute.
I was looking at my settings, going, "Is that me or is that Emily?"
No, that'll be the second time in this setup where it has been me messing around with my
And
microphone.
I would like to reiterate, this is live stream. So if you're listening back on the podcast, I'm not editing that out. That was only what's the emergency broadcast bit that they have on radio that if you get 30 seconds of dead air, they initiate a kind of 1 hour.
That was not 30 seconds of dead air.
It wasn't
was
30
like
seconds, which is why it won't.
seconds of
Which is
dead air.
why it will make the edit. That's
Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad you have the same editorial standards as Radio 4 does on the BBC.
And the fact that you think I listen to Radio 4 is hilarious.
No,
But anyway,
I just thought it was only Radio 4 that had it. I didn't know they all had it.
I follow Radio 4 on Instagram because all their comedy gets posted on there. Anyway, I asked, how are you?
I was saying I'm really good. I've had a really good week. I had some very yummy birthday cake for lunch. My son was 6 this week, and it's been a week. It's been a week. We lost a tooth. Tooth fairy came, surprisingly. He's turned 6. I don't know. I just feel like it's a big week in the Forest household.
You gained a 6-year-old and you lost a tooth.
I know.
Big question. What was the birthday cake?
Okay, a magnifying glass. It was a Victoria sponge in the shape of a magnifying glass because we did a treasure hunt for him and some of his friends around our local area for his birthday party. So he had a magnifying glass.
And was that with like an icing on the top?
Yeah. So I made the cake and then Pete ices them. My husband ices them. So it was a circular, just like a normal standard circular cake. I'm trying to do it like bird's eye view here with like a little loaf cake for the handle bit. And then, he did a brown outside, white bit in the middle for like the bit see-through bit, brown on the handle with some embellishments, some woodeny type effect. And then, very happy birthday, Jonah, on the inside.
Well, if you want to see what that cake looks like, message Emily direct. I'm sure she will send you a picture. I will be also requesting a picture.
I don't know if I took a picture, Well, okay, yes. Message me directly.
You must have taken a picture. How would you not take a picture of a birthday cake?
I'll see. I will see.
That's up there with I haven't seen Jurassic Park. I haven't seen Jurassic Park, and I didn't take a picture of my.
Well, maybe there is a correlation between the type of person who hasn't watched Jurassic Park and the type of person who doesn't take a picture.
Yeah, Luddites is the. Okay, let's. You're looking for pictures now.
I am. I've got pictures of children. Oh, I've got pictures of a lit birthday cake with a lot of children in it. I don't know if that really counts.
You can send it to me, but I'm not expecting you to share right now. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Two things today, because number one, I've been very lax on social media and haven't actually shared a pretty exciting announcement that we are shortlisted in not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 categories at the British HR Awards, which is on Wednesday next week. So I've only just made it in time to make the announcement. Let's quickly run, because one of the categories is pertinent for today, so I will leave that one to last. But I myself am nominated for Rising Star of the Year, which I'm very excited about because last year I was highly commended in that category after being shortlisted. So if I don't win it this year, it represents a backwards movement and a depression which will probably last 2 to 3 months that Emily will primarily bear the brunt of as my business partner. We also have Startup of the Year, Freeformers Startup of the Year. Generally, Startup of the Year categories, you have to be 3 years old or younger. And so this is kind of where, when we get to August, that's it. We're done.
We'll be going 3 years.
We're not startup anymore. We're a teenager. Well, we're 4. That's not a teenager. So Startup of the Year. We've also got Not-for-Profit Initiative of the Year. That's in partnership with our friends Galt Foundation over in Oregon in the United States, who I have actually been sent. Hang on a minute. I've been sent some swag. So they unfortunately, because they're based in Oregon, can't make it to the awards ceremony. So they have asked if they can make sure if they do win, there is some representation. So I do have. I'm not going to destroy my hair, but I do have a hat. I have an awesome notepad, which I've drawn a funnel on. You can see that. That's what we were talking about earlier. If you're wondering, Emily, what I was doodling during our meeting earlier, that was it. Nothing great. And I got a cool new shirt as well. Like, honestly, the best branded swag shirt I've ever received, for sure. And apologies, Water, because you did have that title with your awesome Watsby one. And then the
Shots
last...
fired.
Sorry?
Shots fired.
Yeah, sorry. They're not listening. And if you are, it's a different Water. And then the last one is L&D Initiative of the Year, with partnership with the lovely folks over at Wix. WICKES, not WIX, as ChatGPT keeps wanting to correct it to. It's the DIY store, not the website making company. And so, with that awesome news, very exciting next Wednesday. So when we live stream next Friday, we'll either be sitting here with 4 trophies, 0 trophies, or somewhere in between, and a varying level of enthusiasm depending on those results. But thank you to the awesome folks at New Possible for putting it on, and also inviting myself and Emma back to do something on stage. We didn't mess it up catastrophically last year to the point where they went, hey, we'll get those guys back. So we will be back on stage doing something which I'm not going to tell you about because there's a huge amount of secrecy involved. And that's all I can say. But we will be on stage getting you to think and do things a little bit differently. And with that announcement over, which is very exciting. Emily, how are you feeling about the awards?
I mean, do you want the real feeling or like?
Well, no, because I know how you generally feel about awards. So, like, say something, marketing friendly about.
Yeah, really excited. It'd be a nice day out. There's lots of. I'm looking forward to seeing you up on stage. To clarify, that's Emma Jamil, not me, just in case, because you glossed over that name very quickly. The wonderful Emma Jamil at Be Unstoppable. I'm very much looking forward to watching you two do your thing, having had a little sneak preview, the one and only person in the world, and. I mean, they're always fun. They're always good to recognise lots of hard work, aren't they? I think awards. So yeah, looking forward to it.
It's going to be a lovely afternoon, and hopefully they bring back the Mariachi Band and the Magician, 2 things which, particularly the Magician, bore the brunt a lot of my. How did you do that? And yes, yeah. It's amazing how much chat you have with a magician once you've had a bottle of wine. Anyway, today's topic, 8 minutes into the podcast / live stream, is does L&D need to leave HR? Why are we talking about this? Because I'll be honest, I am seeing a lot of chat in my LinkedIn feed about L&D would have more impact if it left HR. Emily, we talked about this for 5 minutes this morning. What are your overarching thoughts and feelings about the great divorce that is being proposed by some L&D? I'm going to put thought leaders because I don't think there's much thought that goes into the proposition that L&D should divorce HR. But what do you think before I go on my soapbox and rant?
Oh, just get over yourselves. Why does it matter where you do the work? Just do the work, I think, is essentially what we're coming down to. So it's really interesting, actually, digging a layer deeper beyond an initial reaction. There's always been this sort of reluctance amongst L&D. Me and myself too, when I worked in L&D, they're like, we're not HR. I don't work in HR. I'm not part of HR. And, I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm thinking, why? Why has HR got such a poor reputation that even people who do work in HR, I got distracted by people walking in and out. Hello, live stream. Even people who do work in HR don't want to admit that they work in HR. Like that's bad. So I just think that L&D just kind of needs to get over itself, integrate itself more within HR to be able to have the impact that it wants. I know we have so many opinions on this, but at high level, stop pretending you're not a part of something you are clearly a part of. Embrace it to be more effective.
Why do we think this is part? Why do we think this is now part of a new narrative that we're hearing? Because I think we talked about the reputation of HR in a couple of episodes ago, and various articles. I think it was in the Times by the chap. I can't remember his name now. We spent most of it talking about his
Harry something.
Harry something. Of course it is. And so when we look into the reputation, HR has a pretty rubbish reputation. Inside organizations, on social media, and in the press. So I can see why you'd want to do that. Like you'd want to distance yourself from something that isn't liked. But I think there's an assumed level of kind of arrogance there that, like, well, you are in HR, so you do know this means you as well. Just because you don't call yourself HR, you don't identify yourself as HR, you are still in a HR team. Training, learning, development, all of this stuff is still wrapped up in HR and is still what people see as HR. Whether you do or not is kind of superfluous. So I can't get why there is this kind of, I'm going to say that I'm not in HR. I just don't get it. Well, I do get it, actually, because I used to be one of those people as well.
So why did you do it?
Because I thought the rest of the HR function I was working with did absolutely very little work, very little meaningful work. And in some quarters, I think that's true. I think L&D is probably one of the departments that has more impact than most in a HR department. A, not exclusively, and B, not all the time. And so, but I think that came from a level of arrogance and lack of understanding about what the rest of the HR department was doing. A good friend of mine will tell you that when she moved from the L&D team to become a HR BP, I actively stopped talking to her. Because I was like, "You're a HR BP. No, thank you. Do not want anything to do with you." Obviously, I'm being slightly tongue in cheek there, but there was this element that, like, oh, you're going to be one of them. There was always a them and us thing. So, it wasn't really until you understood the context of which, L&D delivers stuff and the stuff, the rest of the HR team delivers stuff, is that you kind of need each other. Like, you can't do, like, everything, the human and employee experience is so nuanced and intertwined that to separate them out is nothing short of madness. But like I say, corporate Toby, who was working in a FTSE 100 company in an L&D team, 8 years ago, started my career to 8 years ago, I would have been on this side of the fence. But now I'm like, no, I think that's quite, what do you have, having your blinkers on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I would challenge the narrative that L&D has more impact because, quite frankly, what do you get throughout every job? What's been more important to you? Getting paid on time or being able to sit in an e-learning module? Right?
Every interview I go into, I ask, what's your e-learning like? Because I'm really looking forward to do it on my first day.
So strategic impact is different from impact on individuals, because impact on individuals is making sure actually you've got everything set up that you need to do your work, you're getting paid for your time, all the processes are working as they're meant to working, any grievances, all of that stuff, the organization is supporting you as it needs to support you. Like, that's all going to have more of an impact day to day than your professional development. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I guess, in a way, in terms of you have to get the absolute contractual fundamentals right first, then you move up a step thinking about processes and support. And I think learning and development can only really get to a stage, can only be important and impactful for an individual when you've actually got all those other things sorted as well. So yeah. I think that L&D, and I was like this as well, I think my own story is slightly different because I didn't come from L&D. I came from delivering training as a provider. So I wasn't part of HR. And then I moved into HR and then I was like, what am I doing here? I'm really confused what I'm doing here. And also I was far less effectual when I was internal to when I was external. So I think that was part of how I built the narrative in my head, which is slightly different. But I think L&D also has an inflated sense of its own self-worth, which I see. Do I think that? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I do. So, but carry on.
But sometimes yes and sometimes no. I think there is always an art, and when people do something really well and they make it look really easy, it's really tempting to say, "Oh, I could do that because it looks easy." Right? And you don't necessarily appreciate all the work that's gone in, the thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours to make mastery, etc. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people across a lot of jobs, not just L&D, are actually kind of being faced with the fact that actually they might be replaced by something, and so they get more like, oh well, no one could ever do this apart from me, and it kind of leads to a little bit more gatekeeping as a protective mechanism. It's not just L&D, it's across lots of different things, sectors as well, roles as well. But I do think there's a little bit of, yes, there's some skill, of course there's some skill in constructing good learning, but actually you have the opportunity to think outside the box, to be wider in the things, the initiatives, the campaigns, anything you can create can be a lot wider than an e-learning or a training course. And we see that sometimes, with some of the people that we work with and some of the things we create, a lot of it might come from marketing, for example. There's a lot of learning campaigns and stuff. I'm working with a client at the moment to work on, okay, so you've got your induction at week 1 and then you've got your check-in in 90 days and like literally nothing happens in between that. It's all like left up to individual managers. So let's take a kind of a marketing approach. Like how can we do a campaign by campaign basis to get people having the things they need at the times that they need it in a way that's not just, filtered straight to the spam folder.
Again, I hark back to the conversation we had about HR's reputation a couple of weeks ago. In the HR's reputation, a lot of the conversation, it was hacking HR, wasn't it? I think the reference I made that it's the Titanic meme. Do you remember that conversation? So when was the last time you got the right amount of investment for your HR department? And then it's the old lady from Titanic going, it's been 84 years or however long. And I was like, well, HR should be able to justify it deserves that investment rather than going cap in hand. And a lot of the chat was in, well, I'd like to see people run an organization and deal with all of this when you don't have us. And I'm like, well, challenge accepted, then do it. And I think it's the same with L&D. Genuinely, if you unplug those things, what would happen? I'm not saying do it, but I'm saying what would happen, and that changes the perception of, where is the value you're adding. I know there's a lot of conversation in L&D circles, particularly that, content creation is vast, right? And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't just all be about content creation. But I think, again, like the HR conversation, a lot of what a HR and L&D person does is to validate the existence of that job role rather than to generally enhance the performance of the organization or the individual, both of which should then impact the performance of the company, right? With the ultimate objective of either having broader social impact, social environmental impact if it's non-for-profit, or money if you are not. And so I think it's become too entrenched in and this transcends probably just the people industries, but other industries, it's like you turn up and do the work that's asked of you, but never really question why. And I think we've generally created a workplace where that's accepted, which is in some instances, in some job roles, it's probably perfectly fine. But in others, like if you want to be a strategic enabler for the organization, you have to be able to question that, surely.
To question
your very existence within the company.
That, well, I wonder if more people are doing it now with the existential threat of AI potentially taking over not only your individual role, but perhaps your whole function, or more likely roles being combined.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing we're going to see. And I wonder if at HRBP and at L&D, when the one I worked in, we had L&D BPs as well, like business partners. So that's going to be like one role, right?
Sure.
Because then you're going to have AI kind of supporting that development. There's a small child trying to comment as well. It's going really well with this live stream today.
I've worked with both HRBPs and learning partners as well, and I'll be honest, the vast majority of them were pretty inept in partnering in a genuine business-centered way. I'll take one request I got from a learning partner was, here's this interactive PDF. It was an interactive PDF. Can you turn this into an e-learning module? And I questioned why, and they said, because I need it to be an e-learning module. I'm like, great business partnering there. You have literally asked me to transpose something that's probably in actually a more engaging format as an interactive PDF. You've then asked me to make that into an e-learning module. So rather than being able to click this wheel of things, you've now asked me to make it a drag and drop instead. What if you can literally tell me what additional business benefit that's going to get for me to go on a 4-week project to do this? I'll do it. But otherwise, I won't. And you know what? They couldn't. And then I left because I was like, well, if you can't substantiate some of this stuff, what are we all doing here?
I think something you said before was really interesting about, a business or learning, like making things better for the business. So I am working on the project I mentioned earlier, thinking about what kind of things can we put in between an initial induction program week-long induction program, and then the 90-day check-in. It's quite a big organization, this one. And the things that the company cares about, or things the learning team care about, stuff like being able to give really good feedback on kind of these soft skills and stuff like this. There's some obviously some like hard actual quantitative skills as well. But I spoke to someone this morning. I'm doing a lot of research. I'm talking to users to actually find out a little bit more about their realities. The thing somebody was saying would be really useful. It's just like, how does everyone else color code their calendar? How does everyone else set up little like filters? How does it? And it's all these like really little things that like take up so much headspace when you're new, especially when you're like really, you've got so many different things going on. You just want to be as effective as possible. And I was just like, you know what? Okay, this is one person that I spoke to. I got a whole load more others to talk to. But I was just like, actually, you know what? If you just had like, these are different ways you could color code your calendar, for example, like that would be so much more impactful than sitting through, I don't know, they did 3 hours on Excel shortcuts or something.
3 hours?
Mm.
I'm now, well, clearly I'm not well versed in Excel shortcuts because I don't think I could even fill 3 hours doing Excel shortcuts.
There's Command V, Control V, Control F,
Yeah.
Control F. Yeah.
Pivot tables is the big thing that stumps me, but that's not really a shortcut. Anyway, there's two interesting things what you talk about there. Number one is that really to understand what change you're affecting there is you need to understand the user journey, right?
Yeah.
And the user journey is nothing to do, it's in part to do with learning, but it's in part to do with a whole load of other stuff, which generally the HR department has control over. What is happening where and when in someone's 0 to 90-day experience. That isn't necessarily exclusively owned by L&D, isn't necessarily, exclusively owned by someone who has the job title of induction and onboarding manager. It may be led by them, but there are so many facets of what you can impact on the user experience that being part of a HR team, if you are genuinely part of it, allows you to do just better user journey design in that world. The second thing you said is about the user insight. And I think we might have glossed over it, but genuine qualitative user insight, or as part of a human-centered design process, enables you to design better things. It doesn't enable you to design just better learning and development or training things. It allows you to design a better product or service for your employees. So even that mindset can be quite transformative. That imagine that, as we do, when you go on this mission, on this voyage of discovery and understanding the user, you're not blinkered by, okay, how is this going to influence my feedback and coaching program? How is this going to implement my induction and onboarding webinar? How is this going to impact that? You can start bringing in, even at a very basic level, like you said, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. How can I really understand what motivates people to act and behave in the ways they do? And how can I support them to act and behave in the ways that both benefits the individual and the organization? Which is kind of that third thing, right? Is that it has to be a product or service that you're delivering to your people, because if it isn't, it is done just solely for the benefit of the organization, and you'll never even lean into any hierarchy of needs, because it's like the business needs you to do this, so you will do it. And it's like, well, great, that is like the 101 in how not to engage someone to get them to do something, in the vast majority of cases. And so in a world where you do human-centered design, to have the arrogance to walk around and say, I'm going to do human-centered design for L&D is fairly reductive, because you still end up doing L&D stuff as a result. Actually, if I brought in human-centered design as an L&D team, but brought in the rest of the HR team into the, both the, I would say, divergent problem solving, but also divergent creation of something as well, I would end up with better things. And L&D would then have to probably deliver some less stuff, really. It would deliver smaller, more impactful things, and it would enable the rest of the HR team to do so. If you remove L&D from that HR equation, you can't do that. Not you, you dear listener, or whatever, right? Is that you can't do that, because you've just removed yourself from this perceived problem you have for your impact. But in the clients we work with and all the work we do, is seen quite clearly, which is why we talk about the awards at the beginning. The L&D Initiative of the Year has literally enabled an L&D team to apply human-centered design to what they do, but also they're now in much bigger conversations about what the employee experience is like at that company, based on the discovery and design work they are doing, which is insane, because I've never seen anyone put themselves as like this central node within a HR team to have that impact, because it's always done from this level of self-preservation. Oh, I'm going to make my L&D team the very best it can be and try and prove the value of my L&D team. It's like, why don't you try and prove the L&D, prove the value of an L&D team to the rest of your HR team? Why don't you try that first and see where you get to? Because I believe you probably haven't even achieved that, yet alone proved your value to the rest of the business.
I think it comes down to the arbitrarily created budget lines, reporting lines, and responsibilities. Often, you know, when it comes to budgets, you want to try and protect your budget. So therefore you want to demonstrate the value of what you're doing. So you'll get more budget for next year. Not saying everybody always does that to the highest degree, but I think that's probably why the structures that we have in place counteract the ability to work more holistically.
And it's one of the stories I tell quite often, right? Is that, having done a large bit of the discovery of human-centered design for an induction onboarding program, a lot of the quick wins could have been made by engaging with the rest of the HR team. A lot of the pains that were being suffered by users from the 0 to 90-day experience could have been solved by embedding yourself within the HR team and figuring all that stuff out. However, the person I was working with, they were tasked and had a budget to deliver an induction and onboarding experience, which was about a webinar on people's first day. And so they were kind of almost rewarded and incentivized in their role to deliver the thing that was expected and not partner with the HR function. And at a point, I kind of would have held that individual, like, you haven't done enough to push the agenda in the rest of the organization. Now, having spoken to that person since and friends of that person, clearly that's what they wanted to do. That they wanted to do everything I've just described, but the framework in which they existed at that time disabled them from doing so. And so in that situation, what you can do, well, I could remove the L&D team from HR. Okay, well, I think that only actually makes the problem worse. I don't think it makes it better. Or you could restructure and rethink how you deliver products and services to your employees, customer experience design principles for employee experience, and start having this holistic design thinking approach. If you don't have a holistic design thinking approach, what's the point in using design thinking?
Well, from that, I think people would be still like, okay, cool, let's not use design thinking. If it's not working, let's not do it.
Well, and that's a question we've never actually ever answered. Why wouldn't you use design thinking or human-centered design as a design approach? I can't think of many. I can't think of many arguments why you wouldn't, because I've done every other design process under the sun, before that, and realized, well, again, one of those stories that I delivered an award-winning piece of training for an organization. It won awards, stakeholders were happy, everyone was super happy about it. And then my brother-in-law turns around and says it was the worst training experience he's ever had in his life, and all his colleagues hated it. Those two opinions can't exist about the same thing. That doesn't make sense. So who in that situation is right? Does L&D have the arrogance to go, well, it got 2 awards from the learning industry, and the user hates it? Which of those, and if they hate it, you can probably, I think it's a fair assumption that the training didn't land, they didn't change their behavior or their mindset as a result, or didn't develop a skill set as a result, because it was so annoying that it had the opposite effect, right? It's like, oh, I'm never going to do that. And so
unless it was a double bluff.
Unless it was a double bluff.
And then it actually had the impact, and that's why you won the awards, because it had all the impact, because people behave counter. I don't know.
That wasn't the case. Okay. I appreciate you trying to save the project, but it's a project that I was deeply proud of, and then became extremely not proud of it when I heard that end user feedback. So what situation could you make that better? Because I thought it was the most creative, innovative learning solution I delivered to my career at that point. I thought it was incredible. I was like, well done. And then the industry went, well done. And then my boss went, well done. And my stakeholders went, well done. And so
did you do insights with that?
Sorry?
Did you do insights with that?
No discovery.
There you go.
Well, exactly. So I think the answer to the question I asked is like, why wouldn't you use a human-centered design approach? I think you and I have been in situations where we've done that, and the output is just pointless. And what I'm saying is that you can increase its opportunity for success and relevancy if you use a human-centered design approach in learning and development. But what I'm also saying is you can increase it even more if you do it as a holistic design solution rather than a siloed one.
You also have bigger opportunity for measurement, I think, when you look at things more holistically. You have access to kind of different types of data, different ways of measuring things that aren't just within the narrow silo of L&D in terms of how do people progress against capabilities. And I think that broader, so I'm a big fan of Kirkpatrick's model for evaluating training. I know it's an old one, but to just summarize, it's got 4 levels, right? It starts off with reaction, happy sheets, like how did they like your training? Which we all know is essentially useless data. Doesn't matter whether they liked it, it matters whether they do something. The next one is learning. Did they learn something? Like, did they learn the thing you were trying to teach them? Again, kind of useless. Useful perhaps for you in terms of, okay, well, if they didn't learn the thing I was trying to teach them, obviously there's something wrong with my training. Number 3, behavior. And this is where we get hard to measure. So not so many people do it. Like, is this driving? Did this intervention, doesn't have to be training, but did this intervention have a change in behavior, the desired behavior change that I was looking for? And then finally, results, like business results, which is very easy to do if you're working in something like sales, and it's sales training because that translates directly, nice and easily. Harder to do in some other subjects, areas as well. And so I think that being part of a bigger system can allow you to look across lots of different data sources and to think more broadly and more widely about how you're measuring the impact of something. But you also then have to share that value that you've created, right? And I think that's where maybe some of these artificial reporting lines, they don't incentivize this, they don't encourage people to work together because it's shared credibility, shared budget, and at the end of the day, when AI comes over and takes over however many percentage of jobs, you want to be the one who's proved I've had an impact, I should keep my job.
I remember one project I worked on was like, can you write 40 articles, not sure why it was 40, to help leaders understand how to lead in a hybrid world?
Cool.
How
How did that go?
Why 40? Why articles? It was generally when I'm asked to deliver the wrong thing now, I put my foot down and get a little bit grumpy about it. Surprise, surprise. Which ordinarily we don't really do now at Freeformers because the design process we follow through and the way we engage with the clients, we'd never get to that point anyway, right? There was some slight hypocrisy that it was billed as a human-centered design project. I was like, there's nothing human-centered about this whatsoever. Other than
Did you
that,
do it?
I am a human. Did I do it? Yes, just about. Just about. It was quite painful. I think I might have got offboarded halfway through that project because I said this is ridiculous. In any case, I think it's that. Yeah, the content creation. Well, let's. Content creation. Synthesia. Someone said this the other day that, oh yeah, but you can create training videos really easily now on Synthesia. And I'm now talking about this kind of AI presenter-led video, right?
Isn't it Synthesia?
Synthesia? I don't know what it is. It's that rubbish that I haven't even bothered to learn the name. But you have this AI character that then says stuff, and
It's an avatar.
It's an avatar. And I like computer games, so I should know that. I don't even think it's an avatar. It's not even that good. It doesn't look anything like the aliens from the film. That's a good reference point. Yeah, Emily, yes. have you watched Avatar? We've got one. Yes.
the first one. I watched it when I was at uni.
There we go.
I couldn't tell you much about it. It was really boring.
It's
really
a
dull.
terrible film. Stick in your lane, James Cameron, and make films about sinking ships rather than blue aliens. Where was I going with that point?
Synthesia and how content creation.
Yeah. So the thing the client I was working with at the time, they had a suite of their content, and the person, get this, in one section of their learning platform was the same, visually the same person, but they had 2 different voices from one side of the platform to the other. It's like, why is this person's voice changed? It was like, well, clearly I knew because it was developed by the platform whose name I can't say. But also it's like, if you were to drop that content out in the wild, would it work? Would people engage with it? Would people respect the information that's coming in? Probably not. Like, there's a reason why you don't see a proliferation of that type of content on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or anywhere else, because it's like, when you start going to that level of content production, you're again putting a huge amount of selfishness on the creation, because like I need to be able to do this as cheaply and as quickly as possible, and I need to benefit the organization. It's a hugely reductive way of looking at measuring your impact, right? And so do you genuinely think those videos are engaging and are gonna work? I would suggest that they're probably not. I can say with some certainty that they're not going to, because there has to be relevancy there. There has to be empathy within there. There has to be the context of the learner. None of that's brought in by that. And I think it's this, we always try and create these shortcuts and disregard anything outside of L&D. Like this is a learning platform program. And it's like, yeah, doesn't that mean it's bad though? It doesn't mean it's good.
People are still people. Like they don't just have this different way of working when they are learners in work. Take some lessons from what goes around on YouTube, what people look like, you yourself. What do you go and look at when you want to know how to do something? I couldn't get the filter out my dishwasher. So what do? I look it up on YouTube, and I'm trying to work out why in this model. And I'm watching somebody who clearly knows what they're talking about, a real person, showing me why it's not working because there's a little extra twisty bit you have to do.
And then you're talking about user-generated content, right? And I'll gonna talk smack about another platform. I think it's called Story Tagger, which essentially goes, okay, it's an app. You install it in your phone. It goes, right, I want you to record a 10-second clip about you talking about yourself. Then do that, and then it's like, right, now I want you to record a 20-second thing about what you do at the company. Then you save that, and then it stitches it all together. And I was like, no content creator that we've worked with a few now across esports and social media would ever look at that app and go, cool, I'm going to use that out to help me become a really good content creator on social media. Like the narrative there is that how can we spoon feed the concept of being really good at creating user generated content in such a way that it actually requires no skill or effort, under the assumption that it takes no skill or effort to be a social media content creator or influencer.
So I've never seen this one before. So I was just kind of looking at it now. I was just going to say though, is it making it easier for people? Does it give a framework? And is that way for inexperienced people, sometimes more of a framework can help you? And then with this one in particular, can you put those videos anywhere? Because if it's within their own platform, then obviously
so you can put them anywhere. But okay, we've worked with enough that is like one very, being able to point your camera at your face and say something for 10 seconds is actually, well, there's two things. That's really easy and really difficult. Really difficult in that people hate doing it. People who don't create video content hate doing it. So that solution isn't going to make someone go, oh, you know what? It's really easy talking to camera now. We don't talk to camera by ourselves very often. There's a reason we do this, because we are talking to each other. We're creating content out of this conversation. And the other thing is that once you've got over that, oh, I can record myself on camera, and I was like, the rules of engagement on working on a camera, on like filming yourself, extend way beyond just make sure you point at your face for 10 seconds and say the right thing for 10 seconds. There are a whole load of other things at play that we've talked about on training programs we've designed and with the folks over at 1J Esports. Like, it goes way beyond that. And so why do we accept that we try and reduce problems down into not the simplest form, but we reduce the solution into the most reductive form of human behavior, when actually it's way more complex? Is it a pricing thing? Is it a skill thing? Is it that we're just thinking about L&D and not wider? What is it? Because I can't take it anymore.
All of the above.
Well, and this is then, you've got to be able to stray out of your lane. I'm going to cough. You've got to stray out of your lane. You have to, because if you stick within just L&D, there's a proliferation of stuff at conferences like Learning and HR Technologies. I look around there and kind of go, well, nothing's exciting me or engaging me, because it's all done with the veil of, isn't this great for learning? It's like, I honestly do not care if it's great for learning. Is it great for employees? Because if it's not great for employees, and I as an employee or anyone as an employee would find it incredible, what I would be doing is I would be taking 10 of my employees, if I had 10 employees in a company, and I would take them around that exhibition hall and go, tell me what you think is the best thing here. Tell me what the thing you would like to engage with. I think it's very, again, there's a level of arrogance of an L&D professional walking around going, I will decide which of these things at the conference and exhibition are better this year. Well, I'll tell you which ones have the biggest stalls. They're the ones that pay the most. So we can get that out of the way. And actually, some of the best things I've seen don't go to exhibitions because they don't have the money, because they're small startups, right? Because they're trying new and innovative things. So I think, the whole ecosystem in which we design and either include or don't include the voice is done in such a antiquated way that I can see why you'd kind of go, well, you know, let's just divorce L&D from HR. Why? Because it might solve something. I don't think it will, but
I think the big thing, to be honest, about the biggest reason why you shouldn't, another massive reason why you shouldn't, is that learning absolutely needs comms support. 100% needs comms support. Probably internal comms, but whatever the marketing kind of function is that works internally, you need that if you're in learning, right?
Yep.
You absolutely need that. And that's a part of HR as well. So why would you try and put yourself completely separate? Whereas if you were more embedded into HR, and comms, I think internal comms has a very similar problem to learning in a way. I know that the comms people I've worked with, they're always like get fed up because they're always asked things last minute. They're never thought about as part of the process. It's always an add-on. Oh, and now I need this and I need it last minute. Well, actually, both of these departments or teams or people with these responsibilities need to be really, really closely integrated together along with employee experience. And maybe, in fact, what if it was just one team? What if you just had one employee experience team? Learning was part of that. Comms was part of that. Maybe some of your more functional HR stuff might sit slightly separately, but maybe they're a part of that as well. I think that would be a better way to look at it. And sometimes we talk about names and like, oh, you know, HR's rebranded to people, but actually genuinely, if you could rebrand in a way that and restructure and reorganize however that looked in a way that made everybody felt much more closely aligned, closely working together towards the same goals, I think that would be what would make a big difference.
I agree. I think, you know, I've been fortunate enough to have worked as kind of a hybrid commercial director for about 6 years. And you really get an insight into actually what is running a business like when you stick yourself in a commercial team. And I was faced with some harsh realities of operating businesses that I'd never even thought about before, because I was just an L&D person before, and I was like, I need to just develop the very best L&D solution I can. And then all of a sudden, much of that just moves by the wayside and go, this just isn't important enough. This isn't just good enough to get the thing done that we need to do. It's just going to get in the way. And I think it cannot be seen as something you shouldn't have to try and convince people to do it. If you're having to convince people to do it, hey, it's probably the wrong thing that you're doing. You know, no one had to go and convince that, you know, there's Greg from Two Circles Design Studio on his podcast, you know, references the iPhone a lot on Apple. Like, you didn't have to do a massive campaign to try and convince people to buy iPhones. Not everyone bought iPhones, and that's fine. But like, the product was good enough, and there was enough social proof once people started buying them that like it was addressing a very specific problem, and the user experience was good enough that it increased adoption. And I think where there's also an interesting point there in that, you know, an iPhone is one option for a phone for anyone in the marketplace. You and I don't have iPhones, and so to develop one product, one thing to achieve a solution or an output is fairly reductive as well, because you're assuming that everybody in your organization thinks, feels, and acts in the same way about a given topic. Therefore, if I deliver this one thing, it will change everybody. You know, the MailChimp, what they call it, customers, right? You're just clumping everyone together.
I think people do have different versions, different ways of providing things sometimes, or I hope so. Certainly, it's like someone I worked with recently, although actually I can't remember how much of this was my suggestions versus what they had already come up with. So maybe actually it was just me saying this, but it was, people are going to need to find some information. How do we get that information to them? So it was like, number one is we have a guide which has all of the information in it. Awesome. Number two is all of that information also links to our learning platform. So if anyone's searching through the learning platform, they'll find it. I was like, nobody is going to do that, but they might want to dig deeper from the guide. If there's a topic that actually they're like, no, I really need to know more about this, they might then go whatever. It was also, coming from their perspective, easier to update if it was all in one place, which I do understand. But then number three, we're like, okay, we'll make this into a Teams like a chatbot thing, and you get through on Teams, and then you can just ask it questions, and then it tells you the answers. I was like, that is the thing that people are going to use. Like that's what's going to help them, and all of that information in the same place in 3 different ways. And I think that's when you start thinking, and also it links to our conversation last week about accessibility, right? Providing things in different ways for people to access means that wherever they are at that point in time, whatever situation they're in, they have different ways they can find that information. And that's why I'm a big fan of audio as well as just written, like so having audio versions of things, because some people are just on the go. Maybe they've got a long commute, maybe they're driving, maybe they're doing XYZ, maybe they're doing something at the same time. You can listen to the stuff instead of just reading it. And there's a whole host of other reasons why you might want to listen to something rather than read something, or vice versa. So I think just having different options for people is always really important for access, for just general ease, or just for personal preference. There was a point there about how it was really important to be, I don't know, different options, but I kind of lost the thread of where I was going with that.
Well, and I think it just links into part of our process, right? Is that you've got to understand the common personas that sit across your organization from an employee perspective. And when we say personas, we don't mean job titles and departments. Too many conversations I've had is like, oh, well, we've got this, you know, the manager persona. Is like, that's not a persona. That's like a functional job role. Like you can have various different
AI did that to me the other day.
Really?
Yeah, literally. So I was exploring, there's an agent framework. My husband helped me set it up. I'm not very good at it, but basically it's like a problem solving framework, and it has lots of different agents who play lots of different roles. And one of them was doing brainstorming with me, and I was like, okay, so I want to like figure out my key customers. It's like, okay, so tell me about your key customers. And then I was telling them about role and what they do. So maybe it was a little bit me, in fact, but then it was like, oh, so these are personas. I was like, they're not personas. They are very definitely just job roles and what the person has to do with the information that I give them. And that's why it needs to be different, rather than this is what really intrinsically motivates them. I don't know, it really frustrated me. I was like, stop calling them personas.
So you twin that with personas, genuine personas, and then you look at like the actual user journey of each of those personas as well. And again, the user journey math. Well, the insight you need to develop personas, it extends beyond L&D. You've got a whole HR team there that's got a glut of information about your people. So don't divorce yourself from HR, because actually there's a lot of information, data, insights there that you can use to develop even better personas. And guess what? The personas are useful to L&D, but also internal. They're useful to the HR department. So why a HR department doesn't have a set of personas anyway is beyond me, unless they think they've got personas because the aforementioned ill-informed definition of persona. Then the other thing is about the customer journey. Like, how are they moving themselves through the organization, through any process or anything that you've got? How are they moving through, and how are you supporting that? And again, that's more than L&D. L&D might be part of it, but there are other touch points in that journey that you'll need to be able to affect a change on as a department. And so really a HR or people team is looking at your most it sounds like a thought leader broken record, but like your most important customer, your employees. Employees are customers. They are not people. Yes, by the definition, they are people, but they are customers. You don't go around calling your customer teams people teams. Why would you call your HR team a people team? And I know I've been on this soapbox before, but like it doesn't make sense to use the word people. All it does is make you feel like you're being human-centered without actually delivering the structure, the strategy, and the system. Sorry, I was trying to think of 3 S's to enable human-centered, a human-centered HR thing. I couldn't care less what the department is called, to be completely honest. I care more about, is it genuinely human-centered or not? And so we go to the HR rewards next week to talk about all of this amazing stuff. But I think that's you've got to extend yourself. And look, let's close off by just looking what the other half of this is. A lot of HR thought leaders and consultants doing a lot of work in policy and handbook updates for the Employment Rights Bill, and doing some essentially tick box training in most quarters for sexual harassment as well. Or the prevention of sexual harassment. And so in that world, there's just a lot of like arbitrary stuff going on over here that doesn't really have an impact on performance, but is incredibly important. And then got a lot of arbitrary stuff here, which might not be necessarily having any impact, but is, do we not see a world where we're delivering all of this stuff to employees and it's maybe all conflicting with each other, maybe all going in different directions, but wouldn't all of this stuff that you're giving your customers, your employees, be better if it was a joined up strategic approach rather than just delivering it for your own. Again, the phrase I always use, the validation of your own existence. Wow, we covered that off in 50 minutes. I think we did pretty well. And so we leave you with all of that to think about. I think the thing I will actually leave us with is like, if you've watched this and listened to this, or you've seen one of the clips on LinkedIn, if you think L&D should divorce itself from HR, please do get in touch, because I am willing to have the conversation. I'm not saying definitively, I kind of am, I think, that it shouldn't be the case. But if there's something that me or Emily haven't thought about, and there's an approach here that actually means it would make loads of sense, please let us know. You know, myself and Emily have worked in internal L&D roles and external L&D roles, so we like to think that we've got a good perspective on it, but you also might have a better one or a different one that would add value to that conversation. So if you are still of the belief that L&D should divorce itself from HR, please do get in touch. And with that, we will see you on Friday next week with some good or bad or middling news about the British HR.